Hey everyone, I'm back and ready with a new sculpture for ya. Today we are going to make a mooncalf from the Harry Potter universe. Now when we're talking about mooncalf we need one thing abundantly clear. There's the Fantastic Beast version of a mooncalf and then there's the Hogwarts Legacy version of a mooncalf. And I've decided to go with the Hogwarts Legacy ones simply because I think it's way cuter. So let's get started. Now you're probably wondering, if I promise you a mooncalf, then why am I playing around with some metal thingies now? And the reason for that is actually quite simple. You see, the mooncalf is sort of a creature that's between a giraffe and a duck if it met a squirrel, something like that. It has a very long neck and a very big head. So I was afraid it was going to be too top heavy and fall over. That is why I'm putting some metal in the body of the armature. Before I can start putting on some clay on little Spot. And yeah, I named him Spot. I'm going to tell you why. Plus, I'm going to teach you, in my perspective, the most important lesson about sculpting later on in this video. But for now, let's cut some legs into shape, shall we? Before I start building up his legs with some super sculpey. And while I do that, let me take the time to thank everyone who has subscribed and everyone who has kept being subscribed. It's fantastic to come from a vacation and realize that you have pretty much doubled your subscribers. Thank you so much, guys. It really means a lot to me. And I am so happy to have you as community. You guys are the best. You made it even harder to go 2 weeks without clay. Not that I managed. Not at all. And by the way, please tell me in the comments if you made something here in the summer. And or visit my Facebook site and post some pictures of it. I would love to show your creations in a video. Now, with the legs done, I moved on to the feet. As you saw, I made a lot of feet. And the mooncalf only has 4. The reason that there are so many feet now is because I was not satisfied with any of them. The mooncalf have these sort of duck feet shaped ones, but they were sort of weird. So yeah, I probably used way too much time on them. But when I finally got them right, I was happy. Sometimes you just have to take your time and make a lot of weird feet to get the results you want. But with the feet all done, all I had to do was shape them to Spot's legs. First I tried with my knife, realizing the doggy feeties were way too long, even after I cut some of them off. So I used the most practical tool I have on me, my nails, and made a perfect half moon shape that just made it slide right on. Now all I had to do was blend them in before I could finally move on and work some more on the body. And while I do that, why don't I tell you a bit about the mooncalf? A quick disclaimer though, I am not a Harry Potter expert or a Fantastic Beast expert at all. I simply a go with Google. So please don't come for me. And now with that being said, let me tell you about the mooncalf. The mooncalf is a timid creature that is invisible during the day and only show itself under the moon when they are dancing on their hind legs in herds, leaving many wizards and muggles baffled about the behavior, because even though the muggles can't see them, they do see the weird symbols there are in their cornfields, and they have just no idea why. Even though the truth of the matter is, it's just the mooncalfs doing the boogie woogie a bit too much. Now the bigger question is, are the mooncalfs mooning when they're doing a dance? Or do they just feel like they want to bust a move? Oh no, I will stop now, guys, I promise. Now let's get back to the sculpture and enjoy this montage of me scraping clay. I hope those 25 seconds wasn't too painful for you. In real time it took way over 8 hours, so if it was painful, I don't want to hear it. The very painful route is usually also the best route when it comes to fur. But let's just focus now on the head and forget that I also have to put texture on that. Right now, I'm simply just putting in some aluminum foil or silver paper in Danish, before we can finally put some clay on little Spot and start making his head. Now, the only real dominant thing in a mooncalf's face, no matter what version you're looking at, is the eyes. So I made Mr. Clafect paint me some eyes, only to beg him to paint me some bigger eyes, making little Spot a true mooncalf. And while I give little Spot's heads some shape, why don't I tell you a bit about him? Now, unknown to any wizard or witch or J.K. Rowling, it is a made-up fact that the mooncalves actually aren't invisible when they sneeze, which is really a problem if you have pollen allergy, just like little Spot has here. He was never invisible, meaning the herd shied away from him. So that is why me and Mr. Clafect took him in. Spot was pretty depressed at the start over the fact that he could remain invisible for so long. But that is why Mr. Clafect showed him his very own invisibility cloak that probably never will and have never worked. But Spot likes it, and that's all that matters. Now, we have been trying to take the cape away from him again, just to wash it because it gets sort of smelly. But until this day, we have been unsuccessful. This little guy simply won't give it up. And that was a little bit, but not all, about Spot. Now let's get back to the sculpture, where I have built his head up enough to finally put on some of the folds and give the face some details. I don't know why, but just as much as I dislike making fur and do it anyway, I just love making folds. I just think it's oddly satisfying to put that layer of details on, and it just always ends up looking great. Here you see me making one of the bigger folds on his neck. Now, a pro tip for you if you're making folds: never just make one fold, because it's always going to look weird. You have to make some folds before you blend it in, because then you can get a better picture on what looks natural and what looks good and what doesn't. Now, if you've seen a picture of a mooncalf, you might not have noticed, but they actually have a lot of folds down its neck, though you don't have to see me blend all those in. Swoosh! And they're blended! I also made some folds down his back, though you're never going to see them because I'm going to cloak them up, so to speak, later on. But with all the folds and flaps in place, I moved on to the ears. The ears was actually the only cow-ish thing about this creature, which make it even funnier that it's called a mooncalf. I think it's more like a dog llama. Anyway, I sent his ear flying before I safely secured onto his head. Now, if you haven't stared at a mooncalf for 12 hours in a row, you might have failed to notice that they have a tuft of hair on his head. Or maybe you did notice it, and I was the only one who had to watch a mooncalf profusely to notice that random fact about it. Anyway, I made his little Elvis doodad on his head out of cosplay to make sure it didn't break off. Before I got to work on the eyelids and shape them. Now, I know that the mooncalf's most dominant feature is the eyes, but oh my god, I used way too long time on the eyes. And it didn't pay out anyway, but I'm going to tell you why later. For now, let's just enjoy past me struggling trying to get the eyes right. And while I do that, why don't you leave a comment telling me what's your favorite magical beast? My favorite is definitely the Niffler. I just can't stand for those little kleptomaniacs. While Mr. Clayfick's favorite beast is actually the mooncalf. That is why I made Little Spot in the first place. Now let's get back to the sculpture and back to, you guessed it, more texturing. Almost all of my friends and family are wondering why I keep torturing myself with making fur when I complain so much about it. But you guys, you're my clay family. I'm pretty sure you understand the sacrifice we are all doing in making something great. Even though it can be so time consuming, you almost go crazy about it. Anyway, with the fur done, I could finally get to make his little cape. Before Little Spot could go in for his last bake. And it was here the tragedy happened. Can you see how one of his eyes is popped up? My theory is, because I used so big capuchons, there was still some air trapped behind the eye, making it pop, literally. But I didn't quit, I didn't throw it out, or give up, and here's the lesson that I mentioned earlier. I kept trying to fix it and make the face leveled again, so to speak, before I gave him a bake more. But even after I tried fixing it, the eye just sort of looked wonky and looked like he was staring into the sky. But that's okay to have a wonky eye. Sometimes, and here's the lesson, you just need to embrace the mistake and make it become a part of the sculpture. So that is why Spot is called Spot. Instead of trying to cover up the accident, I decide to embrace it, and I'm going to paint a darker rim around the eye. Though right now, I'm just trying to get the base colors down. But the lesson about this is that sometimes with any flaw you find, you just need to embrace it. And not only in a sculpture, also as an artist. Take me for example. I'm an incredibly impatient person and I'm very hands-on when I'm doing anything. Now, you could see that as an annoying flaw, which it is at some points, or you can see it as a very motivated person that gets things done. It's all about perspective. Now, let's talk about Little Spot's cloak. I paint the middle of it yellow to get ready for the star that I was going to draw in it. I decided with such a wonky character, he also needed a wonky star on his cape. But this time it was on purpose though. And while that dries, I go in with a darker shade of grey, sort of to give some nuance in his colors. I'm not quite sure if it works, you know I'm colorblind, but I think it did something. Mr. Clayfick have told me it did something, that it gave him all these different kind of layers of grey. And with the fur finally done, I could move on to drawing in the star I was talking about. Because even though it's a wonky star, I want to have control on what kind of wonky it was going to be. And after that, I painted his little cape blue, making Spot from his perspective completely invisible. Spot is actually doing great at our home, guys. The only problem we has is Lord Texalot has gotten into a habit where he wants to ride on Spot's back, which confused Spot because he thinks he's invisible. But other than that, he's doing great. And that's all I know about Spot and his backstory. Now with his little cape done, all I had to do was paint the finer details like the nails and the inside of his ears before I could move on to give him some wash and a bit more dimension. I used a dark wash for the mouth. Before I moved on to his feet, I gave a more purple wash since I made them sort of a grayish purple, all to highlight the details that I had made on the feet. And with that done, all I had to do was clean his eyes up a bit. And I think that is it for this sculpture and it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked Little Spot. I am actually quite a fan, because even though he has his flaws and his mistakes, it sort of make him even more perfect in a twisted way, at least in my opinion, but let me know what you think in the comment. But for now, it's time for me to sign off. I hope to see you next time, but if you can wait until next time, why not click on the square to your right? Then you're going to see Sir Texalot get made. It was quite a journey, but until then, bye!